All right, good evening, everyone. This is Sahara again. Thank you so much for chiming in this evening. Super excited to have you with us. I am running slides, recording the meeting, and talking all at the same time. So I will do my best to be more than a one-trick pony. I just want to thank you all immensely for joining us as reviewers for this community initiatives funding opportunity. We have a pretty jam-packed agenda this evening. This is, like I said, this is being recorded, and I will send out the slides and resources, and I am also here to be a resource. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. In terms of tonight, we're going to talk about the overview, the big overview of the initiatives and the funding opportunity, the application submission review process, letter of intent review process, how to score applications, submit scores, and then the fun one, which is the award process, where we get to assign money. A couple of housekeeping things. This, like I said, this is being recorded. I'm keeping everyone on mute for now, but I will unmute at the end and have time for questions. If you have a question or comment that comes up, go ahead and type it. If you're in via computer, type it into the chat feature of the webinar, and I will hold them until the end. But when we get to that question and answer time, I'll unmute everybody, we'll go through questions, and we will all hopefully be learn together and stronger together. We do have on the phone, I'm really pleased to share, we have both volunteer reviewers from our local coalitions for health improvement across the 4-county region, as well as our independent reviewers. Many of these folks are Masters in Public Health students and Masters in Public Administration students from local universities across the state. So welcome, and thank you for joining our webinar. And for our independent reviewers, if you have questions that come up regarding contracts, stipends, etc., just shoot me an email after this, and I'm happy to connect with you individually. So that's the housekeeping bit, and we'll go on and get started. So for folks who have worked with the Accountable Community of Health, we love our acronyms here. So these are some acronyms that I might throw out this evening. There won't be a quiz, I promise. I just wanted to start with kind of the acronyms, and we'll talk through what they all mean, but just so if you hear me use a 3-letter or 4-letter acronym, that's hopefully one of the ones I'm using. All right. This is a unique funding opportunity that has been made possible through the North Central Accountable Community of Health. This is not a traditional grants program. It's a community investment process. It's an opportunity for our 3 local coalitions for health improvement to come together and to decide how to best invest $450,000 into the region to improve health and wellness. This is the first year that we've opened this funding opportunity, and this is a process, which I'll elaborate on in a little bit, that has been designed by an advisory group comprised of members of the Coalitions for Health Improvement. So a little bit more about the funding. It's made possible through a statewide Medicaid transformation project. For those of you who haven't heard of the Medicaid transformation, it's a statewide initiative that's really aimed at improving our health and our health care delivery, how we deliver services, and how folks can access services. Come on, we got someone joining us in the room. Hey, come on in. So I'm talking and we're recording, so we'll just go from there. Awesome, cool. Let's see. We have $450,000 to be invested, and it is managed by a community investment process through the Coalitions for Health Improvement. The ultimate goal of this funding is to advance whole person health, to address the social determinants of health, and to increase community and clinical collaboration. We really, through this funding, are looking for things that are innovative, collaborative, catalyzes new efforts or expands on current ones, and really helps complement some of the work that's already occurring. All right, the Coalitions for Health Improvement. They are our community of voice groups within the Medicaid Transformation Project. They were actually organized in 2014, and they help bring our partners together to form the North Central Accountable Community of Health. They are really critical to they are kind of our eyes and ears on the ground. Many of them are our implementation partners, and they are the folks that are really doing the heavy lift in terms of improving health across the region. There are three, one representing Chelan and Douglas counties, one representing Grant County, and one representing Okanogan County. In 2017, a voting seat for each of the coalitions was established on our governing board. In 2018, our organization formally contracted to provide support for the coalitions, and at the end of 2018 is when our governing board allocated the $450,000 that was to be invested through this process. In January of this year, 2019, we convened an advisory group made up of members from the three coalitions who actually designed the community investment process. And then in July of this year, after the process was approved by the governing board, it opened to partners. I have been looking at letters of intent that were submitted, and I'll talk a little bit about we're going to talk about the process, that's why we're all here. But through this so far, we have had 63 letters of intent submitted. We weren't sure how wide this was going to go and how many folks were going to apply and what kinds of projects we were going to see, but we have gotten 63. And they range from small projects, from folks asking for about $1,000 to folks asking for $300,000. So there's a really wide variety of projects, and we're really excited to see what moves ahead. So before I dive into the application submission and review process, the way that the community investment process was designed, the long and short of it is that it would not be possible without you, without all of you in the room and all of you on the phone. You are a big part of the community in our community investment process. It is designed to have multiple touch points with the coalitions. It's designed to have several different folks involved in terms of reviewing and scoring applications, and as much as we can have this be a collective decision in regards to how this funding is invested, that is the goal here. So some of these slides are going to look a little scary and complicated, and they kind of are, but hopefully if I've done my job well, we can break them down and talk through it piece by piece. So this is the overall process. This is the overview. We have broken our funding or our awards for these projects into 4 tiers, small through very large. Small is anything less than $25,000. Medium, large, and very large are things over $25,000 and have their own tiers. There are 2 independent application submission and review processes for small projects, and then anything larger than a small project. So all projects must submit a letter of intent. That deadline has passed, so everyone has. I have 63 of them that I'm currently reading and scoring with an eligibility criteria. We'll start on this side and make our way over here. For small projects, there's an eligibility check that's happening right now. They're then invited to application if their LOI checks out. Then that application moves to be reviewed and scored. The top scoring applications are advanced to the award committee for final review, which then those funding recommendations are sent up to our governing board who review and approve recommended funding allocations for partners. The funding for small projects is projected to be released in Q4 of this year. For the large or medium, large, and very large projects, the same required letter of intent, but then there are a few more steps. So the letters of intent for these projects are going to go through what we're calling an electronic feedback session. When applicants submitted their letters of intent, they selected one of the 3 coalitions to review their letter of intent. So next week, what I'll be doing is organizing all of these letters of intent by their selected coalition and actually sending those letters of intent to the broad coalition membership list. And from there, the members actually get to provide feedback on these projects. The goal is to strengthen applications to potentially make recommendations about partnerships or to really help inform the folks who are going to be impacted, or the folks who are putting on these projects. It's a chance for them to engage with our broader community and potentially with the folks who are going to be impacted by these projects. So it's really, it is intended to help, for the coalitions to help strengthen these applications for these applicants. Part of this, though, is we might get a really wide range of comments back through this letter of intent process. We might get up to 30 different respondents responding to these letters of intent. So there will be a review committee, and I got a slide for this, who will be consolidating these comments into one set of recommendations and actually submit those to the applicants. So I'll talk about that in just a moment, but that is what's different between the small projects and the medium through very large, is they go through this review process with their letters of intent. From there, there's an optional webinar feedback session. So folks will get their individual recommendations, and then they can actually get on the phone with me and a few members of the CHI application team and actually walk through some of those comments. All of this feedback is our recommendations. So applicants are not required to take our feedback and to incorporate this feedback into their applications. It will not be held against them if they do not, but they are that recommendations. We hope that they do. From there, applications are due, and then it goes through the same reviewing and scoring process, advances to our award committee, and then to the governing board. Funding for that is projected to go out in Q1 of 2020. So that is the process. It's a lot, yes? All right, so let's chat about timelines and when does all this stuff take place. So this is these are the action items, this is the timeline. So right now, we are in the letter of intent review process, or we will be. I need to send them out. But consolidated feedback will be due back to applicants by October 11th. Small project applications that don't go through that letter of intent, that electronic feedback process, they just go forward to application if their LOI meets the eligibility criteria. That scoring for those applications will begin in September and go through October. And then in October, we will be doing small project award allocations. Because we have one pot of money and 2 different review and submission and review cycles, the recommendation from the advisory group is that in this round of award allocation, that we award about $100,000 of the $450,000 total. From there, our medium and very large project applications will have gone through their electronic feedback process, and we will start to score them beginning November through January, as well as doing the project award allocation December through January. Those final recommendations go forward to our governing board on January 17th, so at their February meeting, they can vote on those allocations. I want to pause, because I'm throwing a lot of info at you, and take a sip of water. And I want to go back to this slide to note that in that first round of award allocation where it's recommended we do $100,000, that if there are small project applications that score highly but didn't get funded in the first round, that they may be entered for consideration during review cycle B when we are here in this top scoring applications are advanced to award committee. So small applications actually have a second chance here in this round. And we will, this is not the only time that I'll be giving this kind of info or instruction, so we will cross that bridge when we get there and revisit that. There will be no quiz on this. All right, are we still with me? Can I get like a chat, yes? We still with me? Okay, I got some heads in the room. All right, I got a yes. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Oh, still coming in. Awesome. All right. So, how are we doing all this? Who's in charge of all of this? So, the community investment process, they developed 3 distinct review committees. I'm calling them committees, but it gets confusing because there's an actual committee in there. So, I think on the conflict of interest policy, I call it the subgroup or something, but there are 3 distinct groups in this process. There is a CHI application team, so Coalitions for Health Improvement, shortened is CHI. So each coalition, the 3 coalitions will have a CHI application team. So there will be 3 CHI application teams. Their primary function is to review the letters of intent and provide and go through that electronic feedback session. So they're going to be the ones in charge of providing the feedback to applicants from their letters of intent and from the comments that come in from the coalition themselves. They will also be part of the review and scoring of submitted project applications. Those scores are going to be worth 20% of the total score. Those groups will be appointed by the CHI Leadership Council. So each coalition has a leadership group that's in charge of designing kind of the strategic direction of the coalition, designing meetings and meeting agendas and setting priorities. So the leadership council groups have already been tasked with appointing their CHI application team members. For everyone on the phone, you will know you are assigned a role by August 30th. So I'm going to get those recommendations from the Leadership Council next week, and then I will send out. Folks will know their roles. So those groups are appointed by the coalitions themselves. There will then be a regional review group. So this group's primary function is to just review and score applications. If you're a CHI member and you get the email that has all the letters of intent and you want to contribute feedback as a CHI member, by all means, but in this role and in this group, you are reviewing and scoring applications. That's worth 80% of the total score. This group is appointed by ACH or NCACH staff, and this is for our independent reviewers on the phone. You are part of this group. So your primary function is to review and score applications. While those 2 groups are reviewing and scoring applications, or once they have, rather, the top scoring applications will be advanced to the award committee. So this is the group that takes that $450,000 and they allocate funds with a portfolio approach. So they're going to look at all of the top scoring applications and they're going to work with a few different scenarios that will be compiled. So we're going to look at, do we fund based on geographic distribution? Do we fund on based on the types of organizations applying? Do we fund on, the diversity in the focus areas of the project? So there's several scenarios that the award committee will see and ultimately make a final recommendation on to the governing board. So that's kind of the final gate. That group is going to be appointed by our executive director, and it will consist of 2 members from each of the coalitions, so 2 from Grant, 2 from Chelan-Douglas, and 2 from Okanagan. It will have 1 staff member. That will not be me, because I will be facilitating the meeting. And it will have 2 of our board members on this group. So this group will be appointed by our executive director. And when we designed this, our original intent was that there would not be any overlap between these three groups so that we could get as many eyes on the applications as possible. However, based on the numbers that we do have, there might be a little bit of overlap. So there is a chance that you might be assigned to be both a member of the regional review group and the chat application team and the award committee. If you're on the chat application team, you won't be assigned to the regional review group because you'd be scoring the same application twice. We don't want that. But there's a chance that we might put you on the award committee. After this webinar, if you have a really strong, and I'm about to show the timelines and responsibilities for these different groups, but if you have a really strong preference, or if you know that you're going to Thailand for 3 weeks in December or something, that you can shoot me your preference, and we'll take that into consideration as best we can. I don't know if anyone's going to Thailand for 3 weeks in December, but that sounds like a fun thing to do in December. All right. So I will send all these slides out. Please don't commit this to memory or feel like you need to pull out your phone and put these dates in your calendar. But I wanted to get as close as I could, kind of a sense of the commitment and the times. We have, like I said, we have 63 letters of intent. So in theory, as long as everyone passes, we will have 63 applications. I believe my pool right now is about 34 folks on the, not on the phone, but of reviewers. So I believe I will be able to set it up in such a way that for our volunteer reviewers in particular, that I won't slam you with here are 20 applications to review. I'm hoping, I don't want to put a hard number on it because then if I go over it, I don't want anyone mad at me, but I will not it will be less than 10 by all means. So this is just what I'm thinking in terms of what's required in this role. So for the month of September, you'll be doing the letter of intent review. What that really means is that it will go out to the coalitions. They have 2 weeks to write back in. They will be sending in their feedback to Lena Mitchell and Kelsey Gust, who are the staff support for the local coalitions, who will then take all of that feedback and consolidate it in a way that's easy to read and digest for the CHI application team to come together for one meeting at the end of September to develop those consolidated recommendations. So it's, again, that one set of recommendations to the applicants. Because if you get, a wide range and someone says, this project's terrible, don't do it, and the other person says, this is really great, but you should add all these different elements to it, that's kind of confusing. So we want to make sure that, that we're giving one set of consolidated recommendations to the applicants. Meanwhile, while this is happening, the small project applications, which you'll remember will not be going through the letter of intent feedback process, that scoring will be happening as well. That just means that you will get an email from me with an unspecified number of applications and scoring criteria for each application, and the time that it will take to score it is frankly as fast as you read. So if you're a fast reader, it'll take you less time. When I've done this before for other NCACH initiatives, it usually takes me about an hour per application to read through everything and to make sure that I'm scoring it. But it could be less and it could be more. It just depends. I will pause to say here, though, that if I recognize for our volunteer reviewers, you are volunteers, and I really want to be respectful of that time that you are dedicating to this. So if something comes up, or if I send you 3 applications and you look at your September and all of a sudden you've been slammed with meetings or something, just let me know as soon as possible so I can make sure that we can divert them so that they get reviewed. Because it will be a lot of back-end coordinating on my end in terms of, I have spreadsheets. For those of you who've worked with me, I love my spreadsheets, and I already have quite a few of them for this. So I just want to make sure that every application gets a pass-through. So just communicate your needs with me, and I will do my best to make sure that we're working with your schedule, because I really value the time that you're dedicating to this. All right. So with project application scoring, we're building in one meeting as needed. So if we don't need it, it won't happen, to discuss any discordant scores or revised scores. So this means that one application gets gets scored by 3 people and 2 people score it at 90% and one person scores it at 30%. We need to discuss why and how that happened and try and figure out what an appropriate final score is. So that's an as-needed meeting, and if it looks like we need that, I will get that scheduled as soon as possible and get it on your calendars. If you would like, you can attend the Q&A webinar session with applicants regarding the letter of intent recommendations. Your work at that point will be, in terms of the letter of intent, will be done because you have given the recommendation. So this is just a chance for them to chime in with me, with other ACH staff members and members of the review committee who are able to make it and interested to be part of the conversation. And it's really just our attempt to help support folks through this application process. We want to see as many folks cross the finish line as we can. It is intended to be a competitive process, but we really want to help support folks. Many folks who are applying don't have professional grant writers on staff, or this is their first time applying for something like this. And for those of you who are familiar with the grants game, it is a game in a way, and there are tips and tricks, and so we want to make sure that we're helping level the playing field as much as we can. We want this to be an equitable opportunity as much as possible. All right, so that's October. Then we have our medium and large application scoring that runs through November. Again, that one meeting as needed to discuss any discordant scores or revised scores. And then at the end of all of this, I want to know from you how the process went and provide recommendations for next year. There's a strong possibility that our governing board will allocate the same amount of funding for next year, for 2020. And because this is our first time running through this community investment process, we built it, now we've launched it, there are going to be pieces that need to be tweaked and can improve. And I think you folks will be in a position to really help inform how and what those improvements may be in the future. All right, moving on. Regional review group. So this is that kind of at-large group. And you can engage in the letter of intent review if you are a coalition member. You will be, in September, doing small project application scoring. Again, that one meeting as needed. Then in November, we transition to the medium through very large application scoring, one meeting as needed, and then one debrief meeting. This group will figure out numbers and applications, but this group may have a few more applications because you don't have that letter of intent process. But again, I will not give you 10, I promise. All right, and then the award committee. So this group doesn't come into play till a little bit later because they are going to be taking the first 2 groups' recommendations via the application, and then working on developing and selecting award allocation scenarios. So what they will do is I will likely send them an email with this information, and it'll say, here's scenario A through D of our top scoring applications. They've been organized in this way. Select your top scenarios or make recommendations for another. I will then have one meeting, ideally in person, but we'll make call-in options available for all of our meetings, to determine the final award allocation, which then will go to our governing board, which hopefully will be approved. So that happens through October. Then we have the application scoring for the medium through very large project applications. So this group will reconvene after the holidays in January to do the same process with medium through very large projects. They'll have that one meeting to determine the final award allocation and then join the debrief meeting sometime in January or February. Please note that with this group, this is as best as I can predict of the time commitment of this group, but that additional meetings may be necessary to select award scenarios. And everything will be scheduled on an as-needed basis. Okay, so that's a lot of information. Give us a second give me a second to get another sip of water and give you a second to digest this info. And then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so this is where we are in the big process now, is we are at the letter of intent to application process. This is happening internally. We have an eligibility check that it's just a form with a few questions. We're reading each letter of intent, and we're basically saying, yes, 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 okay, you're good to go. And then I'm emailing folks. Some folks on the phone, I may have emailed you today, or you will hear from me in the next few days. This is happening for all of these. So this pass-fail eligibility check, this is where we are right now. And for some folks, they might be here if I've gotten a chance to email them. These folks, actually, I should have moved my block around. This, for medium, large, very large, they're also being invited to submit an application. So I apologize, this block should be right here. But they are aware that the next step in the process for them is that their letter of intent is going to the coalitions, and they will go through this electronic feedback process. Once everyone gets their applications in, then we launch back into that submission and review process. Okay. So for this call, because I have everyone in the same place at the same time, so to speak, I'm going to go through all of the different pieces for the 3 different review groups, but do recognize that for some of you, you won't need this information, and for some of you, you will. It just depends on which group you are placed on. And I will walk through, I have a couple screen grabs of forms, and my time permitting, I'm hoping to actually walk through them at the end of this. So, all right. So the letters of intent feedback process. I will be, as I said, sending letters of intent to the coalitions for review. It will be a PDF packet, and it will basically have letter of intent and then the standard feedback form, and then another letter of intent and another blank standard feedback form. The goal or the hope is that you open that packet, it's a fillable PDF on your computer, and you essentially read letter of intent 1, fill it out, name, it's project name, lead applicant, so the organization, and then you have 3 Likert scales and 3 optional comment boxes. That's it. That's what we're asking folks to fill out. So all of the coalition members will be invited to submit feedback using these forms. They fill out their PDF packet, they save it as is, and then they send it back to Kelsey or Lena, depending on which coalition they're part of. And then Kelsey and Lena will take all of that and prepare that for the child application teams. From there, the child application team will be looking at all of these submitted standard feedback forms and develop that one set of consolidated recommendations. A couple of things, or something I'd like to point out, and we'll be asking the child application team to discuss when they're at this point in the process, is that we have asked applicants whether or not their budget is scalable. So someone may have asked for $140,000, and we've basically asked them, what would happen if you weren't awarded that full amount? And folks have given us answers based on their answer. So, we've gotten things like, this couldn't happen without that, or we would have to scale back the number of people we serve. That is a recommendation that the child application team is in a position to give. So if your team comes to the recommendation that you think that their budget could be scaled, or that they might consider scaling back their request in the application, that is a recommendation you can make. Some other recommendations you might consider making are questions or suggestions kind of related to alternatives for reduced scope and cost, so kind of what I just said. Recommendations on the proposed project, so maybe adding an additional partner, or maybe you personally know of some other initiative happening in the region that's similar, and maybe they could, join forces. But again, I do really wanted to note that these are not prescriptive, and we cannot hold them against the applicants if they choose not to incorporate the feedback from the chat application teams into the application. The overall goal of this is to strengthen applications. So that's the LOI process. The application scoring criteria. This is something we will walk through today. I have this. This is a form fillable PDF, and this is what anyone who is scoring an application will be using. So it is, there are 100 points plus bonus points available for the applications. The applicants themselves have a copy of the scoring criteria. So they know exactly what we're looking for, and they know the weight at which each of these questions are set. In the narrative responses, and we've also included this in the application, the things that I want to see and I'd like you to be looking for is we want clear, strong, concise narrative responses. We don't want redundancy. For those of you who have written grants or have reviewed grants, we have a tendency to use what's already working. So I have seen in grants where someone pastes in the same paragraph like 3 times in the application. We don't want that. And we have encouraged applicants to be, I don't remember the exact wording on the application, but it's like be brief, like tell us what we need to know, but like be concise about it. We don't need a manifesto. We need to know what you're doing with the funding that you're requesting. Additionally, the front of the application, and I will make sure that when I send out follow-up, I will send a copy of the project application as well, so you all will have that for reference. The front page of the application has check boxes. And essentially what we're looking for is if someone checks a box in the project information checkbox on the front page of the application, that content shows up in the narrative responses. If you select a project and if you select that you are serving Chelan, Douglas, Okanogan, and Grant counties in your project, but it's not reflected anywhere in the narrative responses, like that counts against that applicant. So we want to make sure that if they're checking the boxes that they're backing that up in the narrative responses. The scoring application, the scoring criteria, I'll launch the PDF at the end, but to complete it, basically what you'll get from me is a blank copy of the scoring criteria template and applications. And in my email, I'll say, Kelsey, who's in the room, so I'm going to pick on Kelsey. Here are 4 applications. Please review them. Kelsey's going to open application A, and she's going to open that blank scoring criteria. She's going to fill out all of the information, and you'll see on my photo here where it's blue. On the PDF, it's actually like check boxes, and you can fill it out. So she's going to go through, she's going to fill out all of the scoring criteria. Then she's going to save that scoring criteria. She's going to click Save As on her PDF, on her Adobe, and she's going to save it as something like probably lead organization or project title, something so I know what I'm looking at when I get back the scoring criteria from you. So let's say the lead organization is, I'm going to pick on Kelsey some more, is Action Health Partners, that you would save, Action Health Partners scoring criteria or something. And then you would review all of the other applications. You would save a new scoring criteria for each of those using Save As with a new naming convention on the top of the folder. And then you would send all of that back to me in an email. I will provide written instructions when I send this stuff out. So again, I won't just like kick you documents and be like, please go forth. Like I'll send you some stuff. And I'm also available if you have questions or it just doesn't make sense, like just ping me. I am here. I have this in my notes, so I want to say it now before, just in case I forget when I pull up the PDF. But so in the scoring criteria, there are 90 points associated with the questions, with the content in the application. There are 10 points that are considered reviewer's choice. This is an opportunity for you to provide subjective feedback. So you have 10 points. You can choose to assign some, all, or none, and it is based on your impressions of the application as well as the project itself. So What we were hoping when we designed this is if it is a strong project, but maybe a poor application, so it's not someone who submitted it is not a professional grant writer, it sounds like a strong project, it has all of the right elements, you can assign your full 10 points and say, like, I support this project, even though there were some spelling errors or whatever. Conversely, maybe it's a really strong application, someone knows how to play the game, but it's kind of a weak-sounding project, you can withhold your points. So you have 10 points, it's reviewer's choice, and our thought was that it would help kind of close the gap. So whether that's strong project, weak application, vice versa, or whatever, that's your chance to have some subjective feedback. And that's 10 points. Okay, the next slide I'm going to show you is probably going to be confusing, and I will show it to you briefly, and we don't need to chat about it too much, but it is out there. So when you are scoring and using the criteria, the scoring criteria template, there are some opportunities for bonus points. I will send this information out again, so please don't commit this to memory. But essentially, for those of you who have not looked at the funding opportunity or kind of the application requirements, we have developed a priority element, required priority elements based on the size of the project. There are 3 priority elements that we've asked folks, and they must basically, to meet a priority element, you must demonstrate diversity in either the number of counties served, the project focus areas, or partnering organizations. So when you are looking at the scoring criteria and you are looking at the application, the front page of the application where the check boxes are, basically what you're factoring in is how many above the minimum requirement did they go. I will have more instructions. Oh, and the other piece is in the check boxes and demonstrated in the narrative responses. So if go through, do your bonus points, and then you come back and you're like, I didn't actually see mention of like the 10 bonus points I assigned in the project information, then we'd go through and just double check that. Again, I will give more instruction when this time comes, but I just wanted to show this to folks. I showed this during the actual funding, the overview for potential applicants, and it started becoming like folks were really curious in that, and I finally had to say, like, we're really more interested in solid main content and a clear approach with the minimum requirements met, as opposed to a really large kind of disheveled grab for bonus points. So same here. If we come across bonus points, we have the ability to give them, but this really what we're focusing on are those 100 points that are already there. Okay. For volunteer reviewers, I sent out a conflict of interest policy. If you have not yet, please sign and return to me. If you need me to we need to do a paper copy or something, or figure out how to send it electronically, just reach out to me and we'll get that figured out. But it's in bold. If you are an applicant, you are on this call, you can be a reviewer. You can and should. I promise I will not have you review your own application. The reason we've developed this conflict of interest policy is to help avoid and navigate any potential conflicts. And a conflict is defined as, or exists, if you are in a position to make a decision that directly benefits an organization or an individual that you are personally or professionally affiliated with. If you have a conflict to declare, essentially the process looks like this. You have signed your policy, you got it back to me, great, we have it on file. When I start meetings, or when Kelsey or Lena starts a meeting around wherein we'll be discussing applications, we will ask, before we get started, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? And if you have one, say your organization applied and we're reviewing that application that day, you would say, I'm Sahara and my conflict is, I just want to declare that I have a conflict of interest because there's an application submitted for North Central Accountable Community of Health. The group then will make the decision about what's the best course of action. So maybe that's you abstain from a decision on that application, I said vote, but decision, maybe you leave the room. The group will make the best decision. I will say at our governing board meetings, often what happens is someone declares, and then we just say, great, if it comes time to make a decision about that particular, that your organization could stand to benefit, that you abstain from that decision. We don't normally kick anybody out. Long and short of it, transparency is the best policy. If you have any questions about it, better to bring it up than to not. So I'm always available to be a resource to chat with you about that, and we will do our best to make sure that I will do my best personally on the back end in coordinating that I don't set you up to have a conflict of interest. So if I know that you work for Action Health Partners and Action Health Partners submits an application, I'm not going to send Kelsey the application from Action Health Partners. Now that said, I might do it on accident, at which point Kelsey would gently email me and say, hey, Sarah, it looks like you sent me an Action Health Partners application. I don't think I should review it. And I'll say, you're right, Kelsey, I'm so sorry. Here's a different application. Okay. That was a lot of information. We've made it to question and answer. I will unmute everyone, but I will ask that you mute yourself unless you're talking, or else it turns into this terrible cacophony of echoes and no one can get anything across. So I'm going to mute yourself unless you have a question, and then I'm going to look at chat and see if you have any questions come through. But this is our chance to chat and any question and answer. Oh, unmuted. Perfect. All right. Are there any questions at this time?
So should we email you, or whoever the person is going to be distributing the application, just what organizations and boards that we're associated with, and that might help you determine which ones we should review?
So when we did the the Survey Monkey, which is how I got everyone's emails today, I asked, are you part of an organization that's submitting an application? I would say, as much as I would love to learn about all the different boards and organizations everyone's involved with, I think let's kind of manage it on case by case. Like if I send you something and you sit on that board, just say like, hey, this is my board, and then I'll know that. But I don't know exactly what kind of can of worms I'd be opening if I asked everyone to tell me every single potential conflict that may exist. But if there's real obvious ones, I will also make sure though that we, as much as I can, give folks a heads up about like this is who we'll be chatting about. Maybe we can try and make sure there's like a summary sheet of like these are the applications and the organizations we'll be chatting about, and then right at that, like, does anyone have any conflicts? Question, then you can look off the list and say, oh, I have a conflict with this organization. Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, we got a chat question. All right. Do you have an approximate date that we will receive the schedule for review? Are you referring to the schedule, like the timelines I just showed you? Yes, so Jolene, I will send out the slides with all of this information, and then when you are an independent reviewer, so you'll be part of the regional review group, but I will also, when I get the groups compositions all figured out, I'll send emails to each group that has that info as well. So I will do my best to make this as accessible as possible and easy for you. In terms of, and then any specific meetings, I will send calendar requests, and they will always have call-in information. So you don't want me to put a calendar hold on your calendar that's like, September 9th through 27th, small application reviewing. That would be really overwhelming for you, I would imagine. So any like one-of meetings or like specific calls to action, not the broad, like this is the review period, I'll send that out as a calendar request as well. We get one more chat? I got one more chat. Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Great. The resounding silence means that I've either answered all of your questions or seriously overwhelmed you and you're having second thoughts. But I hope it is not the case. I'm going to switch over to show the criteria, the funding criteria, or the scoring criteria, really fast with our remaining time and just walk through the form. And basically the next step from here is you will hear from me before September with your assignment for which review group or committee you're part of, or committee. And then if you are placed on a CHI application team, you will get additional follow-up from Kelsey and Lena, depending on which coalition you're part of. More to come, and I will send out this information in an email as well. So the only immediate action item is if you have not, and this is for my volunteer reviewers, not for my independent, to return the conflict of interest policy. And I will make sure I tuck that out. I will send that out again. Writing a note. All right. I just want to, the last two slides in this deck when this goes out, just so you have it. All the contact information, so you have me, you have Kelsey, which is over here for whatever reason, and then you have Lena for Grant. So you have ways to get a hold of everybody, and that'll be sent out. So and that's it. So I'm going to zip over to our, to my scoring criteria. All right. So this is what you should be seeing on your screen is the project application scoring criteria. Like I said, it's a fillable PDF, so I would come in here. I would open my application that I'd be reviewing, so I'd be, project title, project, and then I would put in my live typing skills aren't very good here. I put in whoever the lead org is. All parts of the application is complete. If I zip through the whole application, make sure basically all the boxes are filled or fail. Did the applicant select the appropriate number of required priority elements? There's a question in the application that basically they have to check, so you have to look at that checkbox and just say like, yes, they've done that, or no, they haven't. If they haven't done either of these things, like if you hit a fail here, I would say go through and score the rest of the application, but that they're not passing, right? So, and if you have any questions, like if you run into here and you're like, we're at a fail, like you can also just email me too, and we can go from there. Hopefully those folks have gotten this far. We'll have the whole thing attached. Sorry, is there a question? Okay, so here's our bonus point section. Again, I'll send out additional instructions on this, but it's basically 1 point for beyond the required amount. So, and I have a couple examples in here. If this trips you up in any way, that's okay. What I would just, your best guess here, and then when you email it to me, I'll be opening all these, and if you have any bonus points here, I already know to go back through and make sure that is accurate. So we internally have a process for any that flags for us a second pass through. All right, so then you get down to main scoring, and we have all the sections. You'll read narrative response in each section, and then you'll score it. So there's a scale that you use, 1 through 5, and it's basically scored. So you score something using this 1 through 5 scale, so poor, fair, good, strong, or exceptional. You put in here, they did, let's say they did whatever this is was strong, but with some minor weaknesses, so you're going to say 4. Times that by 1 point. So the weight is what you times it by. So you use down here this 1 through 5 scale the whole way down, but then the responses are weighted to be different points. So that's why we're doing a little bit of multiplication here. Math is not your strong suit, and it is not mine. What I really absolutely need from you is this column filled out, and I can do my best on this side, but I would appreciate if you gave it a try. Here, I just be, maybe there are 5 here, there are 3 here, so I might, so 5. Oh man, I set myself up with that. We're gonna go with a 5 for that one. I don't want to fail at math in front of everybody. But let's say though that this is a 3 and not be 6. So on and so forth. So this is, you go all the way down through all the questions and fill this out. And then we're down to the end of the narrative responses, and then we get down to that reviewer's choice section. So you have that 10 points available. We have a couple prompts for you to think about. Let's say that I think it's a strong application. It's a pretty strong project, but there's a couple things that have me concerned about maybe how, maybe it's not very clear to me how they're going to evaluate this or what the sustainability is of this project based on some of the questions above. So I might have more 7 of my points, and I might say, overall a strong project, but have concerns, or I would say maybe, but more thought into metrics and evaluation. So this is this is your reviewer's choice. This is your subjective feedback. You don't have to put any, but sometimes applicants ask for that feedback, and it's nice to give it if we feel like it's appropriate. The final question is to do one more pass-through and to say, for everything checked in that project information checkbox section, did you see it in the narrative response? This is a pass or fail. And then there is an optional section in the narrative responses, and what this is this one more chance for you to look at their optional section and to basically say, is there anything in that box that has provided more clarity and or strengthens their application? If so, you can review and revise your scores before finalizing. So then I'm done with this, and it's open via Explorer, so I can't actually save it. Let's see what I can do. This is a poor example, team. Ideally, this would be open in Adobe, so I could save it. What I would do here is basically save this as the name of my project. Fill the page down. I'm getting some in-person help here. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, so I would save this, and let's just say for the sake of things, I'm going to say project 7, scoring, and then I might put my initials, but what I need from you is like, whose scoring criteria am I looking at? That's really what I need, and then I'm going to save it. There we go. That's that, and then you email those back to me. All right, we are at time. Any last questions or anything for the good of the order? Oh, I got one more chat. Can you send the forms early so we can familiarize ourselves with them even if we are not reviewing them at that level? Absolutely, I will. Fantastic. All right. If there are no other questions, I again want to thank you immensely for your time this evening and the time ahead of you in this process. I will get things out emailed to you. And you will hear from us regarding next steps. So thank you, everyone. We're really excited to get to work with you. All right. Take care, everybody.
Yeah.